Welcome to a football show from 440 Sports, brought to you, of course, by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. That is Nick Suss. I am Braden Gall. Go pay for good journalism at the Tennessean. Good morning, Nick. How are you, sir?
Hello. I am coming off awfully yellow today, so hopefully the people watching this don't think I am being attacked by aliens or something. Just overcast.
You're just very jaundiced this morning.
Yeah, little jaundiced today. But hello. How are you?
I'm good. The air conditioning should get fixed today at some point, so that's good. That's good news in the lower floor of my house. That's been brutal the last couple of weeks. Good stuff coming this weekend, of course, for Sinkers Beverages. I'm going to have a really not an announcement because I've kind of been teasing this, but we've got some details on what should be their 40th birthday party coming up this summer. It's going to be a ton of fun, great venue, great event, lots of cool stuff they're giving away. So I'll give you some more information on that, of course. And Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Make sure you swing by Shotgun Willie's Barbecue for the best brisket in the city. Today on the show, I wanted to, I don't love doing rankings and listicles and debates about this stuff, but I wanted to look at the AFC South, and we're going to kind of look through each team's projected future, the plans that they need to execute the biggest decisions they have coming up. But I wanted to look through the lens of sort of where each franchise is relative to the other. So front offices, coaching staffs, offenses, defenses, and even some of the silly stuff that I find very interesting because I'm a graphic design nerd, having worked at a magazine for almost 20 years, logos, helmets, uniforms, stadiums, cities, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to have some light tunes and some heavy tunes today on the show. Do appreciate that. I want to start, though, with Nick. And I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but I want to know, what do you think motivates Cam Ward to do documentaries?
Ooh, money. Like he probably got offered to do it financially, and it was a sound investment. Like people are so used to having cameras around these days that I don't think it's an impediment into your life. Like everybody's always being filmed. It's what movie is it? Is it Pop Star? It's one of those movies where you forget whose documentary crew was following who, and you're fighting about. Oh no, it's in The Comeback with Lisa Kudrow, the HBO show from 20 years ago. They mix up whose documentary crew is filming who, and they run into each other, and they can't figure out who's like that's
very ahead of its time, actually.
yeah, it's a great show. We're so used to being filmed that I don't think there's any like, oh, this is gonna change the way I live. I think this is just a thing that was an opportunity, and he took it. Opportunities are good.
Yeah, and I think the money is fine. I just am more interested in sort of like he clearly has a desire to get a particular message out about himself, and he's very aware, thoughtful, smart, detail-oriented around that image, brand, whatever it is that he is building for himself. And I find it interesting, the 0-star thing, which is going to be the focus of the documentary, 6-part series on Tubi, I believe. I just find it interesting when someone decides to do more of that. Because, yes, I agree, we're all filmed, we're all everywhere. Our quotes are, for an athlete at least, in particular, frankly, all of us have given up the illusion of privacy long time ago. There are cameras in every business in America filming us at all times. Most cities have security systems that are tied to their police department. I mean, we are all on camera almost all the time. And so I agree with your point. I just think that when you choose to put more of yourself out there, especially if you have final edit, which I do not know if he does or not, there's some Netflix documentaries about let's call it the Florida Gators with Urban Meyer that looked like Urban Meyer had final edit on the documentary. And it's like, that's not really a documentary. So that's a messaging strategy to sort of launder his reputation. That's obviously not what Cam Ward is going to be doing here, but I'm just, motivations come in very different ways.
I think that this is going to be a story that is heavily curated based off of what Cam Ward and his family wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And that's neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It is a story that they want to tell, and they were approached, and they have the opportunity to do so. Good for them. There is nothing wrong with telling that story. What's going on? Oh, new one. The cat.
Is there another hedge? Is there a hedgehog now? Is there another hedgehog?
No, the cat has figured out how to unplug my laptop. That's a new one.
Super.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that I'll watch it. The only times I've ever watched Tubi are like when hotel TVs have Tubi, and I'll fall asleep to some old Johnny Carson reruns. But
I feel like Tubi is for like people like you almost, like because you'll just watch it. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. You're just like a TV junkie.
I am a TV junkie. Last night I was watching some Carol Burnett reruns. That was nice. I was on Amazon Prime. I think they have a Carol Burnett channel.
I fell asleep to some really lighthearted content. The brand new HBO documentary about Ohio State's wrestling assault scandal.
Yeah, couldn't be me.
It's just lighthearted stuff as you're dozing off at the end of a long workday. Anyway, so just wanted to I want to get your thoughts on that because I think his media savviness, which is an indication of a generational thing, like they are getting, my kids are going to be extremely digitally and social media literate, way more so than even Cam Ward's generation was, which is way more so than you, which is more than me. And so it's just interesting when somebody decides, hey, I'm going to put more of myself out there,
right?
And in particular, to tell the story that is clearly very important to his brand. Like this whole 0-star thing is his brand. Like that's the core of his brand in theory.
And should it be is a question that I kind of racked my brain on of, is that enough of an adversity to mark it as the adversity that's defined your life? I don't know. It is. Like, I'm not saying it's not, but like
if been you're 22 told, years old. Sorry, go ahead.
We've been told, my generation, our entire life, you only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. And he got one shot. Incarnate Word gave him the one shot. He took advantage of the one opportunity.
And now he's a multimillionaire.
Yeah. Like, it's bad. He should have gotten more offers. And if you want to read about how this all happened, I wrote about this in April. I did a long piece on the recruiting mechanisms that allowed him to be a 0-star recruit. It's fascinating. I just don't necessarily think that it's indicative of the story, the whole story. It's a good starting point, but branding it 0-star is a little bit disingenuous when he ended up being the best touchdown thrower in the history of Division I college football.
Honestly, look, if my daughters at 22 years old, they're big, whatever the result is, like obviously not being the number one pick in the draft here, let's not go crazy. I just mean, like, if my daughters at 22 years old, their biggest adversity is that they weren't recruited very much out of high school. I think that's a pretty good place to be as a human being starting your adult life. And there's many kids at his age that are drafted that don't have that opportunity, that don't have that sort of kind of, that's the worst thing that's happened to you is you didn't get enough, And again, it's not necessarily that's the worst thing that's happened to him. It's just like in this bigger story about being a quarterback, that and his sort of existence. Now, again, we don't know what he did or didn't deal with as a kid. Like, I don't know enough about him, but that's a great, if that's all that my daughters have to worry about at 22, 25 years old is like, man, they didn't get enough love coming out of high school. I'm gonna be like, all right, we did a good job, Mom.
Yeah, that's true. And again, I'm not trying to talk down the fact that
no.
Like, it definitely is adversity. I am not saying it's not.
And this is honestly, this is what made Jordan from a competitive balance standpoint, is that he would fabricate the motivation. He would take the thing that it was a perceived slight. It wasn't even real. And he would take it and he would say, I'm going to kick that guy's ass tonight and go score 58 points. And that is what you want out of your superstar athletes, is to always be driven to something more. And whatever it is you need to find to make yourself work harder or stay later or get up earlier or do an extra rep or grind here, like whatever, doesn't matter what you need. It doesn't matter how you get motivated. You got to do it. And if he's doing it, that's all that really matters to Titans fans, in my opinion. So
true.
All right. Let's do some AFC South rankings here and some conversations about their future, the directions of the franchise, optimism, big decisions coming, et cetera, et cetera. I want to remind everybody, Sinkers Beverages 40th birthday party is coming up in August. It's going to be August 9th. It's going to be at 5:30 at the Basement East, which is right there on Woodland Avenue, of course, in East Nashville. We got a bunch of bands. There's 2 or 3 different bands, Off the Wagon Bluegrass, the Magi. Music's going to start at 6. There's going to be tons of free stuff. Tickets are $10. All the proceeds are going to go to Bennett, the Martha K. O'Brien Center in East Nashville. You can buy tickets through the Basement East website. Your ticket, this is the key one here. your purchase of a ticket, which for $10 for charity, where you're going to have a bunch of drinks and a bunch of food and a bunch of great music, I shouldn't have to tell anybody anymore. We're all going to be there hanging out if I can convince Nick to grace us with his presence.
What day?
And August 9th. It's a Saturday, I believe. Saturday. Here's the thing. You buy a ticket, you get entered into, there's going to be all kinds of giveaways and cool stuff to give and free stuff to give away. But I've been on one of these trips. You get to go on the barrel pick trip with Sinkers Beverages, which is like a fancy, imagine like a fancy bus, but like not a bus, like one that's like, like a Winnebago style bus. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's got like the rows of 2, but it's only like 10 or 12 rows deep or so. We take them, we go up to Kentucky. This one's going to be at Buffalo Trace. You're going to probably stop like, what we did is when we went on, we took 2 listeners on this of a football show. Shout out to Joe and to Tim. They went with Zach and I on this trip. We stopped in Elizabethton for lunch, had some lunch, drove us up to the distillery, Wild Turkey. We got to pick out a Russell's Reserve 10-year barrel pick, go to the Rick House, taste like 6 different types. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life as a professional, and I think it's the best radio, podcast, media giveaway that I've ever done in my career. And much fun was had by all, probably too much fun because there was a cooler on the bus, up and back. Going up, cooler was not really used. Coming back, cooler was used too much. But it was a ton of fun. It was a blast. And they're going to be giving away. You have to buy a ticket to enter to have a chance to win to go on that trip. It's going to be awesome. It's one of the coolest things you can do if you are a fan of bourbon or just like interested in the process of distillation and aging whiskey or whatever. It's cool. It's very, very cool. So and celebrate 40 years of Sinkers Beverages serving the community. So there you go. All right, I want to start with some light stuff, Nick, first, just to kind of loosen us up here. I just want to like ease our way in. These are like preseason games here, because ultimately this conversation is going to be about, let's look at the current state of all these 4 teams in the AFC South, from the ownership group down to the secondary. And where are they headed? What does the future look like? What are the decisions that need to be made? What would you do if you're in charge of the Texans, the Colts, the Jags, and the Titans? That's where we're going to end up. But I wanted to start with some other stuff, some light stuff to kind of loosen us up a little bit here.
Yeah.
The Athlon Sports Magazine is coming out. It's out right now. You can go buy it. Please go support, the company here. I've been doing it since 2007. And college football magazines are out. The NFL magazines are coming out soon. So you can pre-order those, but go purchase them, which means I've just been a graphic design nerd for most of my adult professional life. And I find this division to be one of the worst designed divisions from a graphic design standpoint in the NFL. So I want to ask you about uniforms, helmets, logos, and then we'll get to stadiums, then we'll get to cities, and then we're going to move on to ownership, and then we're going to work our way down. I have one team that has the best logo, the best helmet, the best uniform, and the best stadium in this conference or in this division. What do you think?
Okay, I guess if we're doing this newlywed game style, my guess.
Oh, you got a board. You got a board.
My guess for you is that you're saying this.
If you are watching on YouTube, please thumbs up, notifications turned on. If you're on Twitter, please share the product. Facebook, share the product.
I think Braden.
You can see what he wrote.
I think Braden is alluding to the Colts.
I am alluding to the Colts.
Because, and you want to know what the giveaway you said there was? Stadium. So that kind of ruled out a couple of teams that I was on the bubble with.
So Eddie says the Colts uniform being the best is crazy. First of all, and this is graphic design is very personal. I find clean, simple, streamline to be better design. I am from the Steve Jobs, Apple sort of like tech fun, irreverent style of graphic design, but I think cartoon stuff is cheap. I think it's easy and cheap and kind of tacky. That's my personal opinion. So I think the Titans logo is the worst logo of the group. I think we could argue Jacksonville's logo is equally as bad. I think it's pretty close. I think the Texans is only marginally better than the other two, but I think the Colts logo is 1,000,000% easily the best logo. And I think their color scheme and their uniforms are easily the best uniforms.
Yeah, if we're talking, so what are the 4 things we're doing here?
And helmet,
jersey,
too.
Helmet, logo, jersey, helmet.
Do those three first. Yeah.
Off the top of my head, logo is between the Colts and Titans.
Oh, the flaming thumbtack you like?
it's distinctive. It's unique. It is a thing that stands out. I think it's good. The Colts, the simplicity works. Helmet. I think I might give the Jags a shot here.
Do you like the two-tone one that goes from like that they used for a little while that like changed colors?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then uniforms, also between. If the Titans went back to maybe 10 years ago, I think they'd be in the discussion. But I just think
for uniform,
yeah,
you like the old,
ago,
old uniform better.
I like the 06 to 12 era or whatever that was.
Is that just because you were a teenager then?
Probably. But yeah, all the Colts are not doing enough, and the other three teams are doing too much. So it's a question of, do you like the simplicity or do you like the trying stuff? I think the Texans jerseys are going to age pretty poorly. I think this era of Titans jersey has a chance to age pretty poorly.
Oh, I totally disagree. I think this is the best looking Titans uniform they've ever had. And I don't think it's close. Like, it looks, when they wear the dark blue helmet and the dark blue pants, like they look more like Penn State than they do like the Texans. I think I agree with you on the Texans. They are the worst. The Texans are the worst because they're doing too much shit. It's too much stuff. It's too XFL, modern techie. It's too much. Like the red, did they wear the red ones on Christmas maybe?
That
like
sounds right.
Oh my God, it was ugly. I think we can all agree that they're the worst. I think some Jags uniforms are really awesome.
Yeah, the Jags are just really hit or miss.
Exactly.
I think they're caught between identities of kind of like the Titans. They don't know if they want to go throwback and lean into it, or if they want to modernize or simplify, or there's a lot of different Jag stuff. And I don't know. I'm working on a project for later this summer that I'll tease right now that you guys can take a look at, where I've been watching a lot of back footage, and that has meant watching Titans Jags games, Titans Texans games, Titans Colts games throughout the years. And the thing that always stands out is the Colts are the Colts.
They've never changed.
Yeah. They look like the Colts. And you watch like a Titans Jags game from 03 or a Titans Texans game from 09, and you're like, I don't recognize these teams at all.
Yeah.
And so how much that consistency matters to you totally is a value metric of your own. I like it when things age well, but I can't say for certain that all of these things are going to.
I think the Jags Titans, to your point, like an 07, 09, 2011 Jags Titans game looked like a cartoon. But I think they both made major steps to sort of like they did less when they both made big adjustments. I think the Jags adjustment came a couple years before the Titans' big relaunch of a couple years ago. I think they both have learned, like, all right, you got to be like when the Jags do the same thing the Titans do, which is the aqua or teal pant with the white top, and then the helmet matches the pant, and they kind of keep it simple. And that's what I like about the Titans is when they do dark blue helmet, dark blue pants, white top, or baby blue pants with the dark blue helmet. I think changing to the dark blue helmet was a massive upgrade. It just makes them look a little bit tougher, a little bit more old school. It covers up the flaming thumbtack a little bit, which if they didn't have the flames on it, I think it would be more. And I think Jason said this: no team has wasted a theme more than the Titans. They have this entire Greek mythology theme that they could go with, and they end up with a raccoon and a thumbtack. I think that's well said.
We're not going to talk trash about T-Rack. This is not a podcast that will accept T-Rack slander.
Look,
T-Rack is a several-time Pro Bowl winning mascot. That's a thing they do. They send mascots to the Pro Bowl.
The sword logo is the sword logo. I think if it was touched up and modernized, could be very good, Eddie. I agree with you on that one. Coach Wells, Texans uniforms are trash. Look, here's Ivan. I'm a Texans fan, and I agree we're doing too much. I like the simple home. I just don't understand the hatred for the Colts uniforms. They are by far the best looking uniforms, in my opinion. So I think the Colts win the helmet, they win the uniform, and they win the logo. I think it's different. I think you kind of can waffle between Colts, Texans, Titans, and the other ones, but they're all kind of the same. They're all like trying to do too much. I don't know. I'm surprised that you like the old Titans uniforms, but I guess that maybe harkens back to your very specific time in life that you were like falling in love with Chris Johnson.
Also a flaming thumbtack defender. It's cooler than people give it credit. You can say it looks like a thumbtack. Thumbtacks are shaped like T's. And so the team starts with a T.
Fair.
And there are flames. It's cool. Flames are cool.
Coach, so Eddie says it's the raccoon is the state animal of Tennessee. I don't think I knew that, actually.
That's true. Yeah, that's why he's a raccoon.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, to be fair, while I think Tempo, which is the mascot for Nashville SC, is a far better looking mascot in general. It was created, 15 years later, so it should be cooler looking. But the idea that they became a coyote as a mascot because of a lost coyote in the Music City Center is not as good a story as the state animal being a raccoon.
And
to be fair,
while we're pitching ideas here, talking about uniform stadiums and stuff, quick pitch I have for Nashville SC. Okay. Why is the rooting section, like the supporter section, not called the Ring of Fire? Just lean in.
It's not bad.
The Johnny Cash.
Not bad.
Just do that.
So the reason it's so I used to call games for Nashville SC when they were in the USL. And I was told that I was not really supposed to say any of the supporter sections and team names. There's a bunch of them. There's like the back line. There's the I can't even remember the one that I'm a part of. The Music City Heaters, I think, is the one that I'm a part of. But they can't get along. They all want the same thing, but they couldn't unify into one name. We were not allowed to use the name. So maybe that's part of the reason they don't have a good name, a singular name for the supporters, is because it's fragmented. There's like 5 of them, and they have to have they want their own names.
If you're going to lean into the man in black uniforms like they have, they clearly want to hearken to that identity. Just go pure country music. Call it the Ring of Fire. That'd be cool.
Honestly, I think what might be better is to call the state, because they've been struggling to find a name for the stadium. They call it like the Castle on the Hill. Like the castle is kind of what people refer to it all, but like nobody, it hasn't caught on. Like they tried to make fetch happen and it didn't really work. And I think the Ring of Fire for the name of the stadium
that would also be pretty cool.
Is actually really good. Like literally around the stadium. I think that's actually a really good idea. So see, there we go. We workshopped something and we came up with something that's pretty cool. I think this is pretty obvious for stadiums. I think it's number 1 Colts, number 2 Texans, number 3 Jags, number 4 Titans, and then Titans will be number 1 in a very quick in a couple years.
You've inverted 1 and 2, and you've inverted 3 and 4.
Do you like the Texans stadium better?
It goes Houston, Indianapolis, Nashville, Jacksonville.
Why do you like the Houston one better?
So Indianapolis is better set up for events. So if you were talking from a media selfish perspective, it's the joke you'll hear in circles all the time. Man, they just know how to host an event.
Yeah.
Indianapolis is well stationed. Houston's just nicer. It's like I tend to like.
Houston's a better city.
I like the amenities. I like the look. I'm going to be selfish here. A large percentage of it is the pregame media meal. Houston goes all out. That's important to me.
Stop.
But no, I think that just spending time in tunnels and locker rooms and stuff. Houston's locker room a little bit basic. It's better than Jacksonville's, or if we're talking about road locker rooms. But yeah, I give Houston the slightest of slight edges because I just think it's cleaner. You don't have the windows with the glare peeking through, and
here's what we can.
I like it a little bit better.
The glares, I could see that. I could see the glare being the deciding factor. And frankly, I agree. If we're ranking the cities, Nashville is 1, and the stadium for Nashville will be 1 coming up very soon. But like, I think Houston and Indy are kind of close to together on both issues, stadium. But I think Houston's the better state. I think Houston's a better city. So I don't know. I think I really like the Colts Stadium, but that's because I've been there a bunch and I have a lot of memories there. And I just think, to your point, I think getting around the city is great. I think the area around the city is great. It's easier to get around, but I think the food in the city is way better in Houston. So we can all agree Jacksonville is the worst, though. Once the Titan Stadium is done, we can all agree Jacksonville is the worst city to visit and the worst stadium. Which brings us to ownership. And I want to ask you, because we have a change in ownership technically, and we don't really know what the Colts ownership group is going to do. I think having an owner like Jim Irsay is a double-edged sword. It can be very, very productive and meaningful for your organization to have somebody that is that invested and that into it and that hands-on. And it also can be super freaking annoying. And he had his own demons personally that had an effect on all of this stuff. So I don't know how you judge the next wave, I guess it's the daughter that's taking over for now. How do you judge the ownership groups in this? I mean, you got Khan, who's I don't know how to evaluate him sometimes. Does probably a little too much on his own. Amy Adams-Strunk, of course, I think has done some really good things and then has done some questionable stuff. Cal McNair, longtime football family in the NFL. How do you evaluate the ownership groups and which one is giving their organization the best chance to succeed?
Yeah, I think that we kind of have to talk about the balance here between how much. So owners can view success two ways: winning, profiting. And owners can meddle to two degrees. I want control. I want to put people in control. So we have to judge on these two sliding scales. I think Irsay was legendarily good on both of these scales. Perhaps too trusting of putting people in charge based on the fact that he wouldn't fire anybody toward the end. But that's kind of the balance you want of, I'm going to give you the support. I'm going to give you the money. You're going to go out and make a team because I'm not afraid to go get stuff. But also, I'm not going to say I'm in charge. I'm not going to say I am final say guy. I'm going to hire a GM and a coach and all these people who have power. And I think that's why the Colts have been successful for a lot of this AFC South era. I think the McNairs have done a good job with this as well. There were obviously some, shall we say, hiccups there in the late 2010s that kind of made the organization look less stable. But I think that it is still a situation where the people that the McNairs have hired are enabled to go out and use the money they're given and make the decisions without too much oversight. Then you get into these other two where Shad Khan clearly does not have a problem giving his team resources. The question is, does he have a problem meddling?
Yep.
And if he can tone that back, if he can find a group of people he trusts, and maybe he just has not had the best eye for talent since his time taking over the Jaguars. Maybe Urban Meyer and Trent Baalke and all of these situations were, we can just say, flukes for a guy owning an NFL team for the first time. Or we can be a lot more critical of that. But I think that when you're talking about him, he does the things you'd want of an owner, is just around a little bit too much, which is the opposite of what's going on in Nashville.
Yeah.
So I don't know. If I'm ranking them off the top of my head right now, I'd go Houston, Jacksonville, Nashville kind of together, and Indy is a asterisk because we don't know yet.
So that's what I was thinking. Like if we knew that Irsay was going to continue the Irsay way,
yeah,
I think you could argue they're number one. I would have Houston one, and this is sort of just, I'm trying to think of it through the lens of like, would I rather have Amy Adams-Strunk? And I think I'd rather have Amy Adams-Strunk than the unknown of a future generation of ownership that's going to happen in Indianapolis.
Sure.
But if you tell me it's going to be run the same way, I might take the new generation. I think Houston is a little bit more dependable, for lack of a better term. And maybe I'm letting recent success, and even when they were not a great franchise, they were still figuring out ways to win the division.
Yeah.
And so I think I'd go Houston one. I think I would much rather have Amy Adams-Strunk than Khan. I just think I'd much rather have less. I'd much rather have less, because they're all making the same amount of money and getting the same resources. You know what I mean? Amy got this whole stadium thing across the finish line that she's putting a ton of money into that as well. So
yeah,
like, I think the rebrand, I know you like the older uniforms better, but I think the rebrand was fantastic. I think some of how she's also been very supportive of her players publicly around certain social issues. I know that's not as front and center anymore, but it was very prominently in 2019, 20, and 21. I think she did a great job supporting the players and the team and their sort of desires in the community. They have they do a ton of outreach as well. I think there's like a Nashville, Tennessee sort of like, now that she's here and lives here, I think she's kind of adopted some of the way we do things, which I think is very community based. I would much rather have her over than Jacksonville. I don't know about Indian. To your point, I don't know about Indianapolis. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Good. Yeah. Doubling back for a second, because I just saw the comment. Coach Wills, you're asking about you'd love to hear the brainstorming session for name and mascot, and you wonder what names didn't make the cut. I actually wrote about this back in the fall of 23. I want to say it was 24. Wow. You can go back and find this article. I went through the U.S. Patent and Copyright Office and found every single name that the Titans Stadium Committee and Titans Ownership Committee copyrighted, just in case they wanted to use it. I think there were 10 names, including Tennessee Titans, that were chosen between. It is a really, really fun trip. I won't spoil too many of the names, but I will spoil one because it's very funny to me in retrospect. One of them was the Tennessee Commanders. So that could have been ahead of time.
Do you like Commanders better?
No,
Titans?
No, I think Titans is.
Okay.
They chose the best name. There were a couple of other alliterative ones. I think Tennessee Tornadoes was in there.
No, that's not better.
Like there are some that don't roll off the tongue to quite the same degree. Generals might have been in there. There were some generic ones. There were like Vipers, I think, got included. You can go through the article. It's on Tennessean.com, obviously. But it's a really fun question of what else did they come. And I talked to one of the people who was on the naming committee, who let's just say, you'll find his name in the article. I don't need to hide it, but he owns some gas stations. And
Bill or Jimmy,
the senior, and he kind of reminded me of what the debates were in the room and why they liked and didn't like these names. It's a fun read. So thank you for bringing that up.
There you go. I like that. According to the valuation, I think somebody asked same question sort of about, or maybe it was Coach Will said the same thing. If sold, which franchise would be more valuable? According to Forbes, in last year, the Houston, I was surprised at the Houston Tech, but this makes sense based on market size and sort of the newness of the stadium to some degree relative to the rest of the division. Texans are valued at $6.35 billion. That's 11th in the NFL. The Titans are 23rd at 6.01. The Jags are 24th at $6 billion, and the Colts are 27th at $5.8 billion. I thought the Colts would be number one on that list, but the market size probably does depreciate the value. And honestly, what's going to happen is when the stadium is finished, that will affect the value of the franchise, because if you sell the franchise, the stadium is an asset inside of that, because the Titans technically, while the metro government sort of rents the land for like $1 a year, the Titans own the stadium. And so I think the Titans value is going to go up on this and will eventually be the number 2 most valued franchise. I don't know if they would sell for more than the Colts, because I think the brand value of the Colts is really established and very powerful in the market.
The simplest answer to this, though, and this is just me being realistic, the most valuable one is the next one that's going to sell. They're all valued at between 6.5 and 5.8 billion. Yeah. The next one that's going to sell is going to sell for 7. Like, I don't care what the valuation is. When an NFL team is available, somebody's going to overpay for it because it's a good investment, because you're going to make a lot of money off of an NFL team.
So Commanders sold for $6 billion, according to Coach Wills. I think there's 2 things to consider. One, they were forced to sell. Legally, Daniel Snyder was forced to sell, and I think they have a stadium deal coming. Like, they're working on a new stadium. I think. I don't know where they're at in that process from a political standpoint, but I think they're working on that. And so that's honestly, when they're done, I think that Washington franchise is closer to like $8 billion, with the new stadium and new ownership actually doing things the right way. The value of that brand also incredibly powerful, even with a new mascot, which brings us to general manager and head coach. And I think if we're saying the Houston Texans have probably the best ownership group, I think it's hard to not argue they also have the best general manager by a pretty large margin. I think they have the best head coach by a fairly large margin. They have the best quarterback by a fairly large margin. Is that not fair to say?
I'm trying to formulate my answers here. I'm putting it down on the whiteboard, so you keep talking.
Okay, so my order would be Nick Caserio won by a pretty large margin in the division. I would then have Chris Ballard like outside of the top 25 probably in the NFL, and then there's too much unknown with James Gladstone and Borgonzi / Brinker. I guess we'll go with Borgonzi for this. I think Borgonzi could be the number 2 GM. I think Borgonzi could be the number 2 GM with one good season, one good year, and I think he jumps and he's a top 20 GM. And I think he's still behind Casario, but I think he's ahead of Ballard. If they fail miserably and Cam Ward is garbage, then that's going to all fall on Borgonzi's. He's going to be the one judged by that.
Yeah. So I'll just show GM at this point. I've written them both, but I think we're kind of in agreement here. I'm having the same fight between Borgonzi and Ballard.
That's right.
Ballard at times has been a really, really good GM. Ballard at times has been a pretty overly patient GM.
Yep.
I think Caserio is pretty clearly the top right now, and I just don't know enough about Gladstone. at this point. I'm not saying he's a bad GM. He's very aggressive. What he went out to do and get Travis Hunter is really, really gutsy. I don't know if that's going to pay off. I commend the effort, but I will say right now that the way Borgonzi handled his first offseason, I prefer to the way Gladstone did.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then if you're going to head coaches, again, I think it has to be D'Amico Ryans one. Again, I'm not sure, Eddie, what evaluation do you have to put? I mean, Shane Steichen has done the reason Shane Steichen would be ahead of Brian Callahan, and I mean Liam Combs is last, but for all the same reasons of James Gladstone being last. No idea what he is, relatively unproven on the NFL level, and Callahan is just a little bit more unproven, but like had the worst team in the league last year.
Yeah.
Colts have done more with less than anything the Titans have done, and I think it's clear that D'Amico Ryans is the best coach in the division. I don't know how we argue that. So
I'm going to argue Steichen.
You guys Steichen number one.
I'm going to argue Steichen.
Okay, go for it.
It is the more with less phenomenon. It is purely the Colts are competitive these last 2 years under Shane Steichen, despite the fact that I would say they have not had any star power anywhere. Like Jonathan Taylor is hurt a lot, and he's the closest thing this team has to like an overwhelming 1-1 star. And then you take an offensive coach who you give him a top 5 pick at quarterback and you never use him, and they are still consistently competitive, consistently contending for that playoff spot. I know they're not getting over the hump, but I still think that what Steichen has done is more impressive heading into year 3 than what Ryans has done heading into year 3. After 1 year, look, the Texans turnaround from 22 into 23, remarkable. Never mind the fact that I called it. I just liked the offseason that they had that year. It wasn't as much about Ryans as it was Ryans and Stroud and all of the free agents they signed and the supporting cast and the draft and all that stuff. They built a good roster, and D'Amico Ryans has been a beneficiary of that good roster. They built a very, very good roster.
Hired good staff.
They hired a really good staff.
Also the job of the coach.
Yeah, I'm not denying any of that. But I will say that I am a little bit more... When I watch these teams play, there is a intangible, this team won't quit factor that the Colts have that I just attribute to Steichen being good at his job. Like, this is a team that has no right being as good as it is, that is consistently playing.
I think they got better players than you're giving them credit for.
They have good players everywhere. They don't have great players anywhere.
I think Titans. I agree with you on that. I think the Titans fans, they look at Ballard and Steichen and the Colts, and they just always like Michael Pittman's not very good, and it's like, no, he's pretty good.
No, but if like let's just pick a random. Let's say 12. If you've got the 12th best player at every position in the league, that doesn't mean you're good. That just means you're solid. Yeah. And solid teams can win 10 games. Solid teams can win 5 games. You need guys who can win one-on-one matchups to win late in this league. And I don't look around the Colts roster and think, oh, I trust Michael Pittman to beat a number 1 corner. I trust this running game to beat a number 1 defensive front. I trust this pass rush to get to the... Like, they have a lot of good pieces, and something is putting them over the top. So I attribute that to a good job from Steichen.
So if I'm ranking, I think the quarterback rankings are even easier. It's CJ, Lawrence, Ward, Richardson, if you're counting Richardson. I don't even know if we should count him or not. But if we're going to put this all together and start to look ahead at what these teams are, I also think you could argue the Colts have the best offensive line in the division. The Colts are the anomaly in sort of trying to project the future, because they're the ones that we might say has the best ownership group and the best head coach, and maybe the best offensive line, but like the worst quarterback situation and the most questions they need to answer. If you look at their salary cap, they got no running backs, no linebackers. The future, they've got major holes looming after this season in particular, based on their salary cap table. They got major decisions coming on players like Jonathan Taylor. And so I just don't like their defensive line is like Kwity Paye's up for a contract. Like all their best players are coming up for a contract, in particular in their front 7. I like the offensive line, but they have more questions about what they are going to be in the future. And I think this year in particular, not necessarily around the quarterback, although they need to acquire more data on every player they've got. I don't think Daniel Jones is the long-term answer. like if Steichen's really the right answer for all of this, like we got to find out, because I agree that he could be the best coach in the conference, in the division, and he might get fired at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So they're the hardest to pinpoint where the trajectory is and what the plan is, and having brand new ownership after the death of an owner who's been around the league forever, it only throws the whole thing into more chaos, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see the point. And if you're talking about long-term projections, the thing I find interesting is the thing you talk about with the Colts, the places the contracts are coming home, linebacker and running back and defensive interior. These are the places that theoretically are the easiest to plug and play. Of just like, you don't need to have a superstar linebacker to win in the NFL. You don't need to have one top running back. You can win with a committee of 3. If the core of your team, your tackles and your receivers and your pass rushers and your corners and your quarterback are steady, that other stuff you can cycle through without having long-term consistency. The Colts don't have a quarterback. And without a quarterback, none of this matters. And we all understand that.
Well,
but if the Colts can go out and get somebody this year, whether that is a young quarterback in a draft that we expect to be pretty heavy on quarterback talent, or whether that's going out and landing on Daniel Jones or finding another free agent who they can use as a bridge that actually is more than a 1-year bridge like they had with Rivers and Ryan and Wentz and some of these moves, if they can go find an actual quarterback, I think this is a team that's in a good position because I like what they have at the most important positions. But that's a big if. It's a big if.
So the problem is both their tackles, Smith and Raymond, are up for contracts.
Yeah.
You've got Kwity Paye, Abukum, Tyquan Lewis. All their pass rushers are up for contracts at the end of the year. And then after that, you don't know how long DeForest Buckner. He's only got 1 more year on the deal. Grover Stewart's got 1 more year, so the interior's okay. But the pass rush and the offensive line, in particular off the edge, are questions. Now, this year, they should be in good shape along both lines of scrimmage, which could give them an opportunity. To your point, you're right. Linebacker and running back are where you should be able to find replacements. So, Titans fans know about that. And so I think it's more about what they do along the line of scrimmage, because that's where they have been good over the years.
Yeah.
And I think it's more about what their plan is with those two positions in conjunction with the end result at quarterback. The end result is what if Anthony Richardson turns into an actual adult football player, interesting, great. If not, they'll be picking very highly and have a chance to draft one next year.
Yeah.
So I know the Colts are fascinating to me. The Texans, I feel like, are just pretty clearly the best team with probably the best owner, the best GM, maybe the best coach, in my opinion, the best quarterback. I think they have the most talent on their roster, 1 to 53. I don't think it's close. I think they have some questions in the offensive line that they've got to answer. They've got a couple of young players that are under contract, but they're going to have to figure out what to do with Titus Howard and Cam Robinson, who I don't necessarily think are elite players at their position. So I don't know what you make of. We can get to the defense, but they got Stingley locked up for a long time. They've got really good, talented players in the front 7. They're going to have to replace some aging pieces, the Danico Autry's of the world. But they got benchmark pieces like the Colts do not have. Stingley and Will Anderson.
The Texans fundamentally are just stuck in the boondoggle that the modern NFL is built around, which is, what is the value of being good when you are not the best? Like, if this Texans era yields 7 AFC South championships and you make 1 or 2 AFC championship games and you never make the Super Bowl and you never win the Super Bowl, was that a success or was it a disappointment? Yeah. That's kind of the question that the Texans are stuck in, which is a different grade than we're talking about these other 3 franchises.
How about a totally different scale, different spectrum?
Yeah.
What I find interesting is I think in the moment you would call it a disappointment, and then when you look back on it over time, you'd have to call it success.
Yeah,
7 division titles in 10 years is a success, but you have to let kind of time go by of not winning a Super Bowl, allow that to sink in.
Yeah, so I think that when we're talking about what's next for the Texans, we've got people in the comments talking about the next step. They've got to take this next step. I think we have to look at the Texans as a team. What if there is no next step? What if they are a team that's consistently going to win 10 or 11 games, that's got a quarterback who is consistently going to be between the 6th and 10th best quarterback in the NFL, that spends money on receivers, that has 2 all-world pieces on defense in Stingley and Anderson, that has a lot of reason that if balls bounce their way, they can beat the Chiefs, they can beat the Ravens, they can beat the Bills, but the ball doesn't always bounce their way. The ball more frequently bounces those other teams' way.
You're talking way too much like this is the Green Bay Packers.
There's a similarity. There is definitely a similarity.
A little bit higher end with Rodgers and some of the 13 and 14 win teams. Yeah,
for sure. But I think that, Eddie's comparing it to the Vrabel Peak Titans. It's similar. It is, you're good enough to win a bad division. It's similar in that sense and in no other sense.
Very tiny window though.
I think
2.5 years.
Yeah, I think the Texans window is a lot longer. And yes, Ivan pointing out the unmentioned part of this is that the Cleveland Browns have handed so much.
Well, no, I want to. So somebody said, I want to make sure I get this right. And I think it's Eddie. Frankly, Casario and Ryans jobs have been easy up until this point. They were handed a pot of gold and picks to start their rebuild and haven't improved from those 2 years. I don't know if I agree with that. I agree that the Deshaun Watson trade allowed them to sort of kickstart this whole process, but you still had to do it right. And they did it really right, really fast.
Do you know how much guts it takes to do what Casario did with Will Anderson?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That trade was not handed to him. That was whether or not you want to believe kind of the
Monty Ossenfort of it all.
Yeah. How much you want to believe that, we can talk another podcast. But
by the way, Adam Peters and Monty Ossenfort might be the 2 best GMs in this division. But that's neither here nor there.
The savvy required to pull those off. That was impressive. And yes, Jordan, you're correct. I am revisiting my only sports take, which is we crown a champion for a reason and we only remember who wins at the end of the season. That is what I'm doing. You're correct about that.
So cynical.
But no, I think that if the Texans turn into if we want to make a Titans comparison, let's talk about the 99-03 Titans, where I think that we could make an argument that the 2000 Titans are the best team that not a single person on earth remembers. Like
outside of Tennessee. Yeah.
There is a good argument for that being one of the 5 best defenses ever assembled in the history of the National Football League. I believe that by yardage, is it points allowed or yardage allowed? One of the two, still the best defense in NFL history. That was a really good team, but history remembers what it remembers. And the fact that the Titans in 99, 2000, 02, and 03 were, I believe, 11, 12, 13 win teams every single year. What do we remember from that era? We remember the Patriots. They won. If the Texans are going to be remembered, they're going to have to find a way to be better than what they are. And I don't know how you get better than what you are when they've reached a pretty high ceiling already. Like, this is a really good team. They just don't have Patrick Mahomes. And nobody does. So what's that going to mean? I don't know.
Well, okay, so I've got points allowed in a season. And a lot of this is like the 1970s Baltimore Colts. You know what I mean? Like under 10 points a game. If you're talking modern, so 2000, Tennessee Titans is number 16 all-time in NFL history. But like nobody after the Baltimore Ravens in 2000
in that same year,
are probably why people don't remember the Titans.
Exactly, yeah.
Because the Baltimore Ravens gave up 10.3 points per game that year, and it is the only team in the top 15 after like 1986. And then the Titans are number 16, and then the 2002 Tampa Bay Bucks, of course, at 12.3 points a game. The Titans allowed 11.9 points per game that year. Of course, lost to Baltimore famously in the playoffs. I think they can be better than 10-7, but I do think they're the favorite to win the division as long as CJ Stroud's in town, and at least for now. And if Cam Ward turns into some difference maker, then we're going to have a battle on our hands for the next 10 years, and that's going to be really fun to live in Nashville. I just think I think they're set up. They've got some, like, I think their skill position players aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Like, I think they've drafted really well. They have a young layer behind Nico Collins with Noel and Higgins. I obviously like those guys. Hutchinson, they've got Kirk now for like a rental. Mixon's a rental for a couple of years. They've got Schultz now under contract for 2 more years. Like they've got the pieces around CJ Stroud. It's mostly just about the offensive line. If they can find a few pieces on the offensive line, they should be the best team in the division. Defensively, they've got the star power with a couple of major superstars. They need to find a couple of other guys, but I think they can absolutely be more than Cincinnati, right?
I could see that.
And Cincinnati got to a Super Bowl. So I think they could be more than Cincinnati.
It's just a question of how much do you actually believe in Stroud at a certain point. And like, that is not saying I don't, that is not saying I do, but we're putting a lot on a guy who,
no, I think 6 to 10 is right.
Yeah.
Like on his best year, he could be the number 5 or 6 best quarterback in the league. And on a bad year, he's like 10, 11, 12. I think that's the right. He's going to be within that realm of the world. So where does Jacksonville fit into all of this? Because I think with the Titans, we've talked about them so much that everybody knows about the Titans. I'm curious with Jacksonville. So much of it is going to hinge on Trevor Lawrence's health. I feel like this is what I feel like with Jacksonville. They've got a lot of really good players in key spots, and they do a good job of finding them, especially in the draft, more so than anybody realizes. And yet they have no ability to put them all together into a team.
Sorry, I was just cleaning it up. Just checked it up. There are only 3 defenses since 2000 that have allowed fewer than 4,000 yards in a season. 2008 Steelers, 2000 Titans, 2000 Ravens. The 2000 Titans actually allowed fewer yards than the 2000 Ravens.
There you go.
Great team.
Well done. You want me to re-ask the question?
What's up with the Jaguars?
My question is they seem to do a pretty good job of finding talented things. Whether that's Trevor Lawrence, whether that was, hey, Doug Peterson used to have success. Brian Thomas they can find. Josh Allen they can find. Like, they've done a good job finding talent, especially in the first round, getting guys that are contributors. And yet they have no ability to stitch it all together into a cohesive team at almost any point. And anything that they've done well is very, very fleeting. Yeah. So I don't know if that's ownership, if that's general managing, if that's the changes they've made it with Cohen and Gladstone. I don't know what to make of them. There are lots of, there's pieces on that roster that the Titans would love to have.
Yeah, the Jaguars are a team that I look at this and say, if I was building an NFL team, what would I prioritize? What would I value? I think I would build a team that looks a lot like the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would prioritize my quarterback. I would go get 2 stud receivers. I would go get 2 stud pass rushers. I'd get a couple of really solid, accountable offensive tackles. I'd get some fun cornerbacks who can play aggressive and can make some plays in the air. And I would bet that if I've got a dual threat running back who can catch balls out of the backfield, we're going to be okay. That describes the Jaguars in a lot of way.
Yeah.
Now, can Trevor Lawrence stay healthy? Can Trevor Lawrence live up to his lofty expectations? I'm not going to call out anyone in particular. Let's hypothetically call somebody my dad. If you were talking to my dad and ask him, oh, so we all agree the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL are some combination of Mahomes, Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Who's 5th? Hypothetically, if you were talking to my dad, he'd say, well, why not Trevor Lawrence? Because there is still this idea that he is Messiah when it comes to talent, that he is this overwhelming John Elway, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning kind of the best prospect guy that's just waiting to be harnessed. The difference, of course, Andrew Luck won 12 games in year 1.
Greatest comeback in playoff history.
Peyton Manning by year 2 or 3 was,
Although Trevor Lawrence also had one of the greatest comebacks.
Yeah. By year 2 or 3, Peyton Manning was already contending for MVPs. By year 2 or 3, John Elway was already contending for best quarterback in the league type stuff. There is a difference. But there is something about Trevor Lawrence that people will always believe in. He is in this liminal space. He's in this liminal space between hit and bust where we can't say, oh, that was the best pick. That was exactly what they should have done. And we can't say, oh, that might have been a mistake. It's this, ooh, what if he is the guy we think he is? There's kind of a Justin Herbert quality of the if factor always looming over him.
I just
if think Liam Cohen can unlock him.
Yeah.
If Liam Cohen is finally the right coach to do it, because Urban Meyer wasn't, and Doug Peterson wasn't, and whoever else they've had, it feels like they've had 9 other coaches in Trevor Lawrence's career somehow. If Liam Cohen's the guy, and if he can do for Trevor Lawrence, what he did for Baker Mayfield. That's going to mean he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL with two guys who I think are superstars at wide receiver. Like, let's not undersell how good Brian Thomas was last year and how good I still think that Travis Hunter is going to be.
Starting wide receiver Travis Hunter. So I'm one of the, and I'm not going to channel the former co-host on here who thinks Trevor Lawrence is like atrocious. I think I was one of those who believed in the talent and believed in what I saw as a freshman at Clemson, and it's hard to get that out of your head as a 5-star who delivers on the 5-star and then delivers in college and then becomes the first overall pick and then is destroyed by a god-awful human being and football coach in Urban Meyer. He is an atrocious thing. And so I can't. Sam Darnold got ruined by the organization that he went to. Now I think Sam Darnold is far less talented than Trevor Lawrence, but we've seen what he can do with a good coaching staff and situation. And again, I don't think Sam Darnold is going to have a long, elite career. I would say that I still feel the way you're describing generally about Trevor Lawrence. This idea that he's got it all in there if he stays healthy. The problem with head injuries is that they can compound, and all of a sudden you may never turn into the guy that you were supposed to be, and that can permanently damage you. But I do think the maximized version of Trevor Lawrence, unlocked version of Trevor Lawrence, as it were, I still think he could be very good. I just am backed off my Messiah territory now. I think to your point, I think he's in the CJ Stroud territory, which is at his best, fully healthy and unlocked, could be between 6 and 10. And I think that's where he should be evaluated if things go right. And if that's the case, then Jacksonville will be a much better franchise. Yeah. It's everything else gets in the way. The offensive line gets in the way. Although I agree with your point. Walker Little, really good. Makari, why am I drawing Makari? The offensive lineman, really good. You've got
Makari, yeah.
They've invested. I think Cleveland's coming off the books at the end of the year. Haney seems like a good player. They drafted Anton Harrison. He looks like a decent player. So like the offensive line could be decent. They've got skill players around him now. Whether they got to figure out what to do with ETN. He's coming off the books at the end of the year. I can see the pieces. Just like on defense, I can see the pieces. You've got an elite corner. You've got an elite pass rusher. I like your middle linebackers. Like, you've got pieces. That's just everything gets in. Everything else seems to get in the way. The Jacksonville of it all.
Yeah, go coach him. Let's see if it works. They tried it with a bunch of veteran coaches, which this is the instinct. You got talent, have guys who've done it before, put it all together. It worked until it stopped working, which is a description of how it's always been for Doug Peterson.
Right.
Let's not pin that exclusively on anything, but this is a guy who got fired 2 years after winning a Super Bowl. Like, it works until it stops working. But yeah, look, the Trevor thing. The first time I watched Trevor Lawrence in person, he was 15 years old.
Oh, really?
Like, I saw him play in a state championship game his sophomore year, and I was looking at it. I come into the game, I'm like, he can't be as good as people were saying, right? And then by the third quarter, it's, oh yeah, this guy's as good as people were saying. That's pretty cool. And then you see him when he's at Clemson, and you just think, this is the best freshman I've ever seen play college football.
The throws he was making against Alabama in the championship game were NFL throws against an almost NFL defense. They were unbelievable.
The question is he any better now than he was when he was 18?
I don't think so.
And we were projecting so much, and he is still just very good. I like what they've got. Should theoretically Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker be a little bit better than they are? Yes. Should, in theory, Travis Etienne be a little bit better than he is? Yeah. Is Travis Hunter going to be the piece that unlocks all of this? It'd be cool if he was, but that's still a lot of expectations to put on a guy. And they've put, what did Gladstone call it? Do you want to throw out the quote? Do you remember the quote?
Oh, I don't have it. No, what was it?
Just the expectations. Again, I don't have it either, but the unreal expectations that they're putting on Travis Hunter are perhaps warranted. But
right.
And while Braden looks this up to clean it up, I was not as good as you guys think I was. I'm a lot taller than you think. You only see me sitting down, so I think my squat max in high school was like 385.
Ooh, that's about what I did.
Yeah,
that's about what I did. I think I maxed out at 265 on the bench. I feel like.
I've got
very long arms.
Yeah,
I have very long arms. So, are you talking about the? Let me see here. Is it the capacity to play both ways, where he's like, he does not tire, he's got a spark, he's got the energy, the capacity from a physical standpoint to be able to do it is certainly there? Is that doesn't sound all that?
That's not over the again. It was more watching the facial expressions than reading the quotes. The dude, it never.
He loves him some
And I also love me some Travis Hunter. I think Travis Hunter is very good at football. He's going to be fun to watch twice a year. But that's the story of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Great pieces. Can they congeal?
Yep, exactly right. All right, I just wanted to have some fun today on the pod, on the show, do some rankings, and talk through the AFC South. We haven't really done that a lot because I think it is I think the division is the Houston Texans for the taking, but I think a second franchise will step into the void. Excuse me. And I think the Titans and the Jags and the Colts they all have pieces in place to claim that they are going to do that. It's all just a bunch of unknowns. Can the Jags put it all together? Can the Colts go find a quarterback? And is Cam Ward the right answer? A lot of that's about, the quarterbacks. So
I'll say the Titans have the most questions, to be fair, because we also don't know if the coach and the GM is still unproven and most of the roster is still unproven. The Titans are still theoretically the team that has the most to prove.
I agree with that. Okay. Eddie says, all right, boys, that was fun. Now it's time to go watch the Mets get swept. Settle down. I'm going to go order some tickets on pre-sale for October, but don't tell anybody.
If you want to watch some baseball, there's going to be some good college baseball this week. I'll always rep for my favorite sport.
How about a no-hitter in the College World Series?
And then don't ask Arkansas fans what happened next.
Tough but fair. tough but fair. All right. So going to be a lot of fun over the summer. We're going to have lots of fun and silly and very serious stuff as well. Obviously, make sure you check out the Sinkers Beverages. Tickets are on sale. Basement East is the website. It's I think it's the best club venue in the city right now.
Great venue.
It's August 9th is the date. You're going to have bands, giveaways, food, drinks, all kinds of cool stuff. Would love to see all you guys and celebrate Sinkers Beverages' commitment to the community for over 40 years, 40th birthday party. And, of course, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue open Wednesday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Go check them out. Great stuff up there at Shotgun Willie's Barbecue in the heart of Madison, just 10 minutes from downtown, the official barbecue of the Houston Oilers. Go check out Tennessean as well. I think that's about it for us. Anything else you want to add?
No, again, all this sounds fun. Let's have fun this summer. If you guys have ideas that you want us to ramble about on the show, let us know. We're happy to not have to come up with ideas ourselves.
2020 Titans offense versus 2000 Titans defense with the rules of 2025.
Taking the defense, but it's close.
Much closer than people want to admit.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry versus that Titans defense. Hell yes.
Yeah.
Hell yes. All right. Thanks to everybody for hanging out. Share the product. Give us a 5-star review. If you do not give us 5 stars, you are a hater. Have a good one, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.